Today's video is all about Mortal Kombat secrets that nobody knows, or at least very few people know about. Unless you worked on the games yourself or were lucky enough to get early access, chances are you never saw any of this stuff. So do me a favor, and if you learn anything new in today's video, please leave a like down below. And it would also be cool if you left a fun comment as well. It helps the channel out a ton, and I love covering interesting topics like this for you all to enjoy. So without any further ado, let's begin with the Mortal Kombat secrets. Secret number 1. The Collector was supposed to bleed gold, and the Elder Gods were supposed to bleed blue. This first topic is extra interesting because I was one of the few people lucky enough to play early builds for Mortal Kombat 11. And if anyone's interested, that footage is still on YouTube if you want to check it out. And during that gameplay, if you watch closely, then you'll notice that Garrus has blue blood. Yup, originally Garrus, along with Cetrion and even Kronika, were intended to have blue blood, likely to separate them from the mortal characters who bleed red. It makes sense that Elder Gods and Garrus, who was created by Kronika herself, would all bleed a different color than regular human mortals. That was the original intention. However, for some reason, before launch day, NetherRealm changed all the blood colors back to red. But thanks to early access gameplay, we know that Garrus used to bleed blue. But when it comes to Cetrion and Collector, there was no early access to play them, as in they were never available to play until launch day. So you might be asking yourself, how do I know that Cetrion's blood was originally blue and Collector's blood was originally gold? Well, as it turns out, the Crypt mode actually gave this secret away, because you see, there's actual game files for every severed head that you can put on a spike to unlock Shang Tsung's throne room. And in the final playable build of the game, everyone's head gushes red blood except for D'Vorah, who for some reason got to keep her blue blood, but I digress. There's images of these severed heads in the game files for Mortal Kombat 11, and guess what? You can see clear as day the Collector is bleeding gold and Cetrion is bleeding blue. And that's because these characters were originally meant to have those blood colors before NetherRealm changed it for one reason or another. And for another quick fact, Frost has a cybernetic spine here as well, just like in the gameplay intros, which is not there in the final build of the game for some reason. When you toss Frost's head on that spike, she has a regular human spine with bones and everything. For the original vision of this game, lots of characters had different blood colors. It wasn't just red and then D'Vorah with the blue blood. As it turns out, many characters in Mortal Kombat 11 were meant to have unique blood colors, but NetherRealm changed it last minute. Some players theorize that's because the game was rushed and NetherRealm didn't have time to add these changes, or maybe were forced to revert these changes. But for me personally, I think there was a different motivation. NetherRealm likely thought that players would be confused why Collector bleeds gold despite being a regular mortal. And those same players would likely also wonder why Garrus bleeds the same color as D'Vorah. Are they the same species? Like, what's going on here? You get the idea. I think NetherRealm was worried about that sort of confusion, which is ridiculous because players can easily understand that, oh, this character bleeds a different color and there's no reason to look into it too much. Collector obviously bleeds gold to reference his absurd greed. The man is obsessed with money and even steals anything he deems valuable, so having him bleed gold is just a fun reference to his greedy nature. But no matter what the case may be, NetherRealm made sure that most of the characters bleed red with a couple of exceptions, which is a real shame because I loved playing Scarlet, and guess what? Her weapon colors would actually change based on the opponent's blood color. That's right, it's there in the early builds of the game. If you fight Garrus as Scarlet, then all of your weapons change to blue, and the same thing would have happened with Collector and the cyborgs who bleed black. Oh, it would have been so cool, but for some reason or another, NetherRealm changed the blood. Secret number 2. Cassie Cage was originally a pro wrestler. That's right, the Cassie Cage you all know about is very similar to her father in both gameplay and personality, which does make sense because Johnny Cage raised her, but also she wields military weaponry as a reference to Sonya too. Or in other words, Cassie Cage is a good mix of both characters. But what if I told you that Cassie Cage was supposed to be completely different? Just check out this early concept art for the character. Cassie Cage was originally planned as a pro wrestler, which honestly makes perfect sense because she is a celebrity's daughter after all, so she likely would choose a profession that makes her up front and center, while also taking advantage of her combat skills. However, the evidence does not stop there. During the Mortal Kombat X prequel comics, Cassie Cage competes against Frost in an MMA match. Yup, the former pro wrestler battles in a cage match. Come on, you can't get more on the nose than that. And guess how she wins that fight? That's right, a rear leg choke. A move that she never does during the games, but would fit perfectly in a wrestling match. Which is just more evidence that Cassie Cage was originally going to be a grappler, a pro wrestler to be specific. But there's still even more evidence of Cassie Cassie Cage as a pro wrestler in Mortal Kombat 11. Don't forget about Kano's ending, where Cassie Cage is once again fighting in the ring and wearing an outfit oddly similar to her pro wrestling concept art. Yeah, you can definitely tell that NetherRealm loved the idea of Cassie Cage being a professional fighter, which makes you wonder why they chose to make her a soldier instead. I'm guessing they thought fans would be happier if Cassie was a perfect blend of Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade instead of being drastically different from her parents, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because honestly, I think Cassie Cage as a pro wrestler would have been way more interesting, not just for her lore and backstory, but her gameplay as well. Can you imagine a lady grappler with the green glow? That would be so sick! Secret number 3. Rain stole Sub-Zero's X-Ray in Mortal Kombat 9. That's right, despite being a DLC character sold many months after release, Rain stole the startup animation for Sub-Zero's X-Ray. If you had access to early gameplay builds for Mortal Kombat 9, or were lucky enough to spot this one specific gameplay trailer that never aired again, then you would have seen Sub-Zero's original startup animation for his X-Ray. Instead of freezing his body and tackling the opponent like he does in the final build of the game, Sub-Zero summons a gigantic ice spike below the enemy that launches them right over to him. And anybody watching who played a bunch of Mortal Kombat 9 will recognize that startup animation. That's right, it's nearly identical to how Rain's X-Ray attack starts in Mortal Kombat 9. But why did this happen? I'm guessing that NetherRealm thought the giant iceberg launcher looked kinda goofy, so they decided to change Sub-Zero's X-Ray before the game launched. And then, many months later, they decided to give that unused animation to Rain, because it's just more efficient that way. Why make a brand new startup animation when the Sub-Zero launcher actually works for Rain and still looks really good? That decision not only saves NetherRealm a bit of money and time, but also it fits the character, so why not do it? Believe it or not, this happens all the time with fighting games, so the next time you watch a fighting game trailer, especially early gameplay, make sure to keep your eyes peeled and pay attention to anything that might change. Because when launch day finally arrives and you get to play that game, you might notice a few changes here and there, since it's not uncommon for fighting game characters to swap animations with one another. Alright, secret number 4, and this one is very interesting. Mortal Kombat 2 used pong to force great players off the arcade cabinet. Yep, that's right, this secret is pretty hilarious, but also kind of genius at the same time. While playing Mortal Kombat 2 at the arcades, if anybody managed to win 250 games in a row, then the game would automatically switch to pong, which I bet seemed very random to players at the time, but it was actually meant to give the losing player a final chance. For anyone watching who might be confused about that, allow me to briefly explain some basic fighting game arcade etiquette. When playing fighting games at the arcades, typically whoever won the match got to stay on the arcade cabinet, and the person who lost had to leave and let the next person in line play. Which was kind of fun because it meant everyone got to fight this skilled player. However, if that person kept winning, then that just meant less people got to play, and also you never got to play with your buddies because this one guy kept beating everyone. Which is exactly why Mortal Kombat 2 had this random pong match. This random pong match was meant to even the playing field, because why would a skilled Mortal Kombat 2 player be good at pong? Chances are they wouldn't have practiced very much at all, and as a result both players had an even chance, and maybe that skilled player would finally be dethroned and allow other people to play. Yeah, like mentioned earlier, this addition to the arcade cabinet was actually quite genius, although at the same time, why 250 matches? I don't think many players would stick around for that long. Sure, they might keep winning, but even so, I feel like after 100 straight victories, most people would get bored and move on with their day. So as a result, I think 50 straight wins would have been more than enough to trigger this random pong match, but at the same time, it's likely that Ed Boon and Midway wanted to keep this as a secret that most people didn't know about, and to keep things more secret, they have to happen less often, hence why the 250 straight victories that likely very rarely happened, if ever at all. Alright everyone, that's all the secrets I have for today's video, but there likely are tons of more secrets to cover in the future. So if anybody watching knows any more cool secrets about Mortal Kombat that you'd love to share, please let us know in the comments, because it could very likely be talked about in a future video, and you'll even get a cool shout out as well. Thanks for watching everybody, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below, it helps my channel out a ton, and if you haven't already, finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.